now an MSNBC contributor. Let me start with something that Sam just said, that they are looking for violations of federal law. What might that be, Joyce?
Well, Chris, it's hard to know until you know who the suspects are and what the evidence looks like. There is a misdemeanor violation in this area for someone acting not under color of law, so not a police officer, not a government issue, who makes a racially motivated threat like this. But also in civil rights cases, I've often found that early on in the interviewing phase, people will lie about their participation. And it's possible to charge a statute that we became familiar with in the context of another case, the Michael Flynn case, that charges lying to FBI agents during an official investigation. And that's often how these situations are resolved.
Yeah, let's hone in a little more on how they might get to the bottom of this, Joyce. I mean, you would think they would have looked through all the video by now of those cameras. Here's what the New York Times reported, similar to what we heard from Sam. NASCAR officials said the garage was fitted with surveillance cameras. NASCAR's president declined to say how many had been installed or whether they were working at the time of the episode on Sunday. But Wallace's mother, Desiree Wallace, said in a text message Monday that the cameras were not where the noose was hung. That doesn't mean they might not get someone, I suppose, coming or going, depending on the positioning of those. But what other kinds of things will they be looking for, Joyce?
Well, I saw that reporting, Chris, and it's interesting because this appears to be the new garages that they broke ground on in 2018. So there may well, as you say, be some sort of camera coverage that shows people going in and out. But investigators, and I think we'll see FBI working hand in hand with officials in Talladega, will be looking to see who had access to this area, if they had access during a critical point in time. And they'll go through the hard work of interviewing individual people to see what they saw, where they were. Perhaps if they can get access to people's cell phones, they can use that for locational purposes. But that would require predication to get to that point.
So, I mean, it sounds like they've got a tough prosecution ahead. It's one thing to say if we find the person, we're going to ban them from the sport. Doing something legally is something different altogether. And there are a few different agencies working on this. Obviously, the FBI, the Civil Rights Division, even obviously NASCAR has said we're looking into this. How does that all work? How do they work together? Who takes the lead? Is it the FBI?
So typically the FBI would be the lead law enforcement agency working hand in hand with ALEA, Alabama State Law Enforcement Agency, and then the Sheriff's Department in Talladega. NASCAR also has a very impressive investigative staff. They are experienced at doing these investigations, and I would expect them to play an important role. As you point out, Chris, I haven't seen anything officially yet saying that the Civil Rights Division is involved, but I would not be surprised to see them become part of this investigation today or in the next few days. It's important to find both to identify the individuals responsible and then to decide how to deal with it. In this case, banning from the sport may be as or more impactful than a criminal prosecution could be.
I want to shift gears a little bit because we were showing just before we went into you, and Sam, and I'm sure you saw it as well, there are more protesters back at Lafayette Park. You can literally see that park from the windows of the White House. And yesterday they tried to pull down the statue of Jackson. And this was what President Trump had to say as he was leaving to go to Arizona about the monuments. Here it is.
I will have an executive order very shortly, and all it's really going to do is reinforce what's already there, but in a more uniform way. If they need help, the federal government is willing to help them. If these hoodlums come around, these are not protesters, by the way. These are anarchists and other things. If these hoodlums come around, and if the states can't handle it, we are ready, willing, and able to help.
That follows his tweet saying, I've authorized the federal government to arrest anyone who vandalizes or destroys any monument, statue, or other such federal property in the U.S. Can he do that?
So that's not how law enforcement works in this country. The president doesn't personally authorize arrests. Instead, we have legislative bodies that write laws, including criminal laws, and that's what law enforcement enforces. There is a federal statute that makes it a crime to destroy or attempt to destroy a military monument relating to military of the United States. So I think that would exclude Confederate war figures. And it has to be on federal property or otherwise an appropriate subject for federal jurisdiction. Law enforcement can enforce those laws if their leaders, their district attorneys and U.S. attorneys authorize those prosecutions. But really what the president is doing here is just posturing.
Joyce Vance, always great to have